My name is Crystal Moten, and the title of my book is Continually Working: Black Women, Community Intellectualism, and Economic Justice in Post-War Milwaukee. I wrote Continually Working because growing up on the south side of Chicago in the 1980s and the 1990s, coming out of a moment where many African Americans were concerned about politics and justice and jobs, I saw how folks in my community, including the women, were still advocating for justice. But I also noticed that their stories were not in the history books that I read. And so as I read about civil rights and social justice, I had a question. Where are Black women? And where are the movements of the Midwest? Why are they not accounted for in our stories that we explore about the civil rights movement? And that has been the question of my career. How can I answer that question? And so Continually Working is one answer to the question of where are the women in the civil rights movement? Where is the Midwest in the civil rights movement? Many African Americans, including and especially Black women, hoped to realize their freedom dreams when they came to Milwaukee. And what did that mean? They hoped to have a measure of economic freedom and mobility. They hoped to have a measure of social and political status. And they hoped to be able to live comfortably in the neighborhood of their choice, accessing the education that would propel them up their economic and status levels that they desired. And so Black women, they wanted good jobs, but they also wanted an environment where they could raise their children without suffering, where they could access leisure opportunities, right? Leaving a South that was really constrained by racism and segregation and the violence of white supremacy. Now, coming up to the Midwest or to the North didn't mean that they would flee that altogether, but there was a difference in the way that was exercised in the Midwest. And they were coming to the Midwest to explore that and to achieve that measure of freedom. I define Black working women expansively, but I'm also very particular about what it means and how we understand a Black working woman. It's not simply any Black woman who works, because I really focus on women who are not elite, right? Women who are not very wealthy, right? But I focus on the women who are working in jobs that may be lower or underpaid, women who may be trying to achieve a job, to get a job, women who are actually not working because their particular circumstances prevent them from working, but aspire to be in the labor force. And then also moms who their labor is caring for and raising their children, but they still have expectations from the government and from the state around the support they need to do so. A major idea that I hope to explore in this book was to connect Black women's political action with their intellectual activism, because for me, the two are intimately combined. But many times Black women are not characterized as thinkers. Black women are characterized as doers, always doing, always helping. But I wanted to take a step back and understand, how were Black women's thoughts, how did their knowledge inform the types of political actions that they engaged in? And so what I found is that many times Black women were strategic about how they were understanding and analyzing their experience. And so Continually Working explores that to the best of my ability, given the sources that I had access to. And so when I think about Black women's intellectual activity, I look for it, right, in their testimonies, in letters they may have written, in reports they may have drafted, in memos, in resolutions, because all of these reflect the thought process of Black women, which helped guide their actions. When Continually Working came out, I was a little worried, because I didn't know how people would respond and react to the book. But as the book has been out, I have just been so pleased, and my heart has been so warmed, because people resonate with the stories that I'm telling within Continually Working. They see themselves, they see their family members, they see histories that they knew needed to be recorded but had not been recorded or had not been taken seriously by historians who have been formally trained, myself. And so the reaction has been phenomenal. Additionally, when I think about the ways in which I try to write a book that would be accessible to a wide variety of readers and audiences, as I've also been pleased that that has just exactly been the case. Anyone can pick up the book and understand what I'm saying in Continually Working, and that is pleasing as well. Even though I couldn't predict how people would receive Continually Working, I knew that it would resonate today for a number of reasons. One, we're still struggling in terms of economic justice. Black women are still underemployed and not paid at the rate as either white men or white women. I also see and know that there's this expanding interest in African American history, but not for our regular well-known narratives, but for the narratives that we don't know, and for places that we don't understand, and for people that we have heretofore ignored. And so in those senses, I knew that people would find some interest in Continually Working, because the topics it explores are really, universal, but it brings in the specificity of a place we don't know much about, a region we've ignored, and activism that typically is not considered when we think about civil rights movement activism. In terms of future work and future projects, I am really interested in more Americans having access to the actual words of Black working women. One of the future projects that I am engaged in relates to an anthology that I am compiling of the primary source documents that Black women themselves wrote in regards to economic justice. So people can read for themselves the words that Black women wrote about their very own actions and activism from them, right? So letters and speeches and other documents that allow Black women to speak for themselves in their own words. So that's one project I'm working on. The other project I'm also working on relates to thinking about Black feminism and how to understand history. We know that Black feminism as an analytical and theoretical tool of analysis has been employed by academics. But Black feminism and its practices are also taken up by everyday people, and by everyday people who are concerned with history. And so then how do you connect Black feminism to public practices of history, public understandings of history? How can that help us understand how to do and practice history better? So I'm also engaged in a project that explores that very question.